Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I am really excited and grateful that you're joining me here on the show today. And I'm super excited for today's guest. But before we get there, I want to give a little shout out to the sponsor for today's episode, Offering Tree. You guys have heard me talk about Offering Tree a lot. And I just want to remind you that they are a one-stop shop for all things yoga business. So if you are looking for somewhere to have a website, a class schedule, a blog, a video on demand library where you can offer workshops, memberships, and so much more, Offering Tree might be for you. So you can check them out at offeringtree.com/MBOM and you can get a discount there. And they have some awesome new updates that they've been making to their software. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on in the episode. So stay tuned for those updates. This week on the podcast, I'm thrilled to be joined by Erin Wimert. Erin is a yoga teacher and the founder of Panacea Retreats. Erin has been teaching yoga for 13 years, and after years of teaching 15 to 20 classes per week, she started teaching and hosting retreats. And she found that teaching retreats gave her financial freedom to drop classes and has been running retreats for the last 8 years. And since then, Erin has created Panacea Retreats to help other yoga teachers lead retreats, experience more financial freedom in their yoga businesses, and uplevel through retreat offerings. So we're going to talk about her story, her journey, everything she's learned through this process, and she's also going to share some of her top tips for leading successful retreats. So I hope that you guys enjoy this episode. I hope you learn a lot. And without further ado, here is Erin. Welcome to the show today, Erin. I'm really excited to have you here with me today.
Hi, thanks. Me too. So thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you. And I'm curious, where are you joining us from today?
I am from Denver, Colorado.
Oh, amazing. I love Denver. I was there in early 2021. I think that was the last time I visited.
Yes, it's very hot, but it's beautiful here. So I love it. I've been here my whole life.
Oh, amazing. It's a beautiful place to be. And it's funny that you say that because I was there in February and I came from Mexico. So I was not hot while I was there. I was very cold.
Yeah, we're headed towards that season. It's going to get chilly here soon.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the heat, and then you can embrace like the fall, like sweaters, boots, all that type of thing.
I will, and I'm going on a retreat soon, so I'll be happy to be there when it's chilly. We're going down to Costa Rica in November, so it's a good time to lead a retreat when it's cold and chilly back home.
Yes, that's the perfect time to go. And I'm definitely excited to dive into all things retreats with you. But maybe let's start a little bit with your like background with yoga, your yoga story, that type of thing. Can you tell me how you first got into yoga and how you became a teacher?
Yeah, well, after I went to college, I had a desk job for a few years and was really kind of looking for something to do after work, some form of, exercise and workout. And a friend of mine and I decided to go to our very first yoga class. And I was really just hooked, like so many people are after their first class, and just wanted to dive in. And I took teacher training after only being a student for maybe 6 months. And after teacher training, I quit my job and became a full-time teacher, which nowadays I don't think that you could do. This was about 13 years ago. But back then it was totally feasible to, pick up 20 classes and make a living off of being a full-time teacher. And as I got into that, I started getting into more teacher trainings and just really taking it as seriously as I could. And I would travel to go do trainings with Annie Carpenter in the Bay Area. She's been my teacher for a long time. And she would always mention, her doing retreats. And I just thought that was a really cool idea, a cool way to make money, and a cool way to get to travel. So when I first started doing retreats about 8 or 9 years ago, I had someone help me plan my retreat. And essentially, I got a free trip, which at the time I thought was great. I was in my 20s and I hadn't really seen the world. And I had someone help me with the first couple of retreats. It didn't make any money, but did get to travel. And after a while, I realized how much money they had made off of me. And I was like, well, maybe I should try figuring this out on my own. And um, I started leading my own, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned a lot of things about the ins and outs of um, making sure that things go off without a hitch. There's just so many little details that if something went wrong, it could really affect um, sort of the flow of a retreat. And I sort of came to a point after 7 or 8 years that I decided that I felt like I wanted to help my friends, because it was a really amazing way to make a new stream of income. And as someone who had been teaching 20 classes a week and barely getting by, it felt like, I hit the jackpot. Like, wow, I can travel and make good money and actually be able to save and move into a nicer place, and really just up level my life in general, where I was just barely scraping by. And so I started helping my friends. And then after being in quarantine and lockdown in 2020, I became aware of a business coach who was helping women start their own businesses. And I joined, not knowing what I wanted to do, but knowing that I didn't want to be teaching as much as I was teaching. And I came up with this idea of starting a retreat planning business for other teachers and helping them sort of know this dream of being able to travel and teach and make money, and not have to be burned out with just teaching studio classes all the time. So that's how Panacea Retreats came about. And it's been really amazing to meet women. Mostly my clients are women from just all over the country, and show them what's been possible with retreats. And they've been getting really excited for their upcoming retreats. And it's just been an incredible journey. And I want all teachers to know that this is a possibility as an extra stream of income. And if you like travel and you feel like you're ready to sort of increase um, your income, which I think any teacher teaching tons of classes a week could relate with. I feel like this is just such a great idea for teachers to consider, to just up level their lives, up level their careers. And it's just been such a game changer for me. So I'm excited to help other teachers see the same prospect.
Yeah, amazing. So much good stuff there. Thank you for sharing all of that, Erin. And I'm curious, so when you were teaching and you're teaching 20 classes a week, did you have a moment where you're like, hey, this is like unsustainable for me, or like I'm hustling, and like, I'm making decent money, but it's like, you're working a lot to kind of like, I guess, survive in today's expensive world.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was a couple years in that I had realized, like, wow, like I'm working and driving around and I'm burned out and my body's tired. And it seems like there's nowhere to go. Like there's no there's no position ahead that I can like be promoted to. Maybe like a studio manager or something, but they seem to be just as burned out as I was. So I had to work through that. And there was a lot of years where I felt like I wanted to quit teaching and I didn't know what else to do, because I know I didn't want to go back into an office setting. So yeah, I struggled with that a lot. And, even to this day, sometimes I still struggle with being burnt out with teaching. I teach much less now, but it's still like it takes a lot out of you. It requires you to be on. And, but I definitely knew that there was something else I wanted to do that didn't require me to be driving around town all the time. And, um, after, to be quite honest, after, lockdown and quarantine, I really realized that I enjoy just being at home. Like I like being in bed. I like doing work from bed. I like being quiet at home. So that's when I started to get this idea of like, how can I have a remote job? But it was really retreats that led into all of it. It was retreats that allowed me to take some time off and cut my class load, by more than half. And it all started with getting these extra chunks of money from leading retreats, once or twice a year.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. And I want to get into those retreats you're leading, but I just want to quickly ask about like how your life as kind of like a full-time yoga teacher pivoted when the pandemic hit. Like, did you take your classes online? Did you take a break from teaching? Like, what did that look like kind of, I guess, March of 2020 when the world went pretty weird?
Yeah. So actually, I had a great 2020. My husband, who is PDJs, he's been DJing my classes since we met. So at that point, we had been doing kind of live music yoga DJ classes for 5 years at that point. And we decided to start taking our classes online, on Twitch, which is a gaming platform. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's free and it's an open source platform, where anyone can just type in the website and join class. We had already like audio and video equipment, and we noticed like DJs were going on to Twitch during quarantine. So we decided to start live streaming our classes. And we did DJ classes during the weekend, live DJ bar on Saturday, and live DJ yoga on Sunday. And we actually still do them. But we had all of our classes donation based, and we were making more money from our donation classes on Twitch live streaming than either of us had made previously before the lockdown. So we had people from all over the world who were regularly taking our classes. And by the time things started to open up and people were getting their shots and whatever, and feeling like they could travel again, we planned a retreat in Costa Rica, and it sold out. And then we opened up another one the week right after, and that sold out. And then we opened up another one the week right after. It didn't fill up completely, but there was still a good chunk of people in there. And these were all people from around the world who we had never met. We just knew their screen name online, who had been taking classes with us. So that's how I ended up getting back into retreats after things opened up again. But 2020 was really good to us. And like I said, we got to be at home and be with each other. And it was a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's kind of interesting. My uncle is a musician, and he had been like, touring with the band he's in quite a bit in like Western Canada and the Pacific Northwest. And obviously all of that got shut down with like, bars, restaurants closing. And he'd been performing a lot on like Vancouver Island where he's based. And him and his wife started doing these like, I think they were calling them like something with pajamas, because I know they were like showing up to perform these shows on Twitch as well in their pajamas. And I mean, he was like making pretty good money touring, so he was definitely not making more money through Twitch, but I think it was like, kind of sustaining them as, different sorts of like money was becoming available for people who were out of work and stuff in those early days. And I remember thinking like, this is such a cool idea. Like, you don't have to move your setup. You've got, people who can watch your music like from anywhere. It's like I've only seen him perform live like once because I happened to be in the area, and the beginning of quarantine and stuff, we'd watch like every Wednesday. It was like, can pull it up on our iPad and make dinner and watch him perform and, send him some money via PayPal and stuff like that. And I feel like it's just a cool kind of creative way to kind of think about like, hey, everyone's at home. How could we help provide a community? And I think it's so cool with what you're talking about, how once people were able to start traveling again, it's like these people, you guys were like a community, a lifeline for them during these hard kind of dark times. And it's like, yeah, I want to meet these other people that I've been like practicing yoga with online in person. So I just love that. I think that's really, really awesome.
Yeah, and they were a lifeline for us. They were consistency. They were always there, and we were always there. I think we went a whole year and a half of streaming without missing a weekend. Even when we had gone to Costa Rica, like as soon as things opened up, we immediately went to Costa Rica because we were just dying to travel. Like even when we went down there just for a vacation, we ended up live streaming still on Twitch. Like we never missed a weekend after a year and a half. And finally we were like, okay, we need we need to have a little bit of leeway. So if we end up being away for the weekend, we'll let people know. But yeah, for the most part, we're still doing 4 live streams a week on Twitch, and those same people are there, and it feels like we have this experience of being in quarantine together virtually, and we feel forever connected to these people. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I know you mentioned a little bit in your story, kind of your background with retreats, but can you, just go into a little more bit more detail about like, kind of getting into retreats, what you kind of liked about it, and then hosting your first one?
Yeah, I think I mean for me it was all about initially like just having a means to travel. I mean, I love teaching. I love my students. I had a good student base at that time after like 5 years of teaching consistently. So I felt pretty confident that people would come. Um, and they did. And I think having that passion for teaching and being with my students and showing them an amazing time and giving them an amazing experience was always the priority. And that's, always what I put my time into, whether it be in the classroom, in the studio, or at a retreat. But for me, the really frustrating thing was just being broke all the time and not feeling like I could take care of myself and not feeling like I was paid my worth, and being at the mercy of what studios wanted to pay me. So I think the most exciting thing for me was being able to make a lot of money after a week. And it seemed to me that other than leading teacher trainings, leading retreats is one of the only other ways you can really make a good chunk of money. And I found I was actually making more money after a week-long retreat than someone who was doing a 3-month teacher training. So I know that a lot of my coworkers and friends who are teachers were also having this money struggle of like just barely getting by, but like hustling, using their body obviously to work and being burnt out. So once I started helping my friends doing the same thing, the big part of it is having this additional stream of income. So that's what I want to help other teachers do. And I want them to feel completely supported while they're doing it, and also make a good chunk of their profit. So that's always been important to me. I feel like, as you know, yoga teachers are notoriously paid poorly and expected to do a lot of extra work. And like I said, at the mercy of the studio, usually like what they're making. So I feel like leading retreats is a way for teachers to kind of take their power back and to have this independent extra stream of income that no one can take away from them. It's like it's their experience. They can be creative, have full creative reign to teach what they want, and like I said, also get paid well.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm really like in alignment with that as well. And so for anyone who is, maybe interested in leading their first retreat or getting into retreats, obviously there's like a lot of different factors that kind of go into it. And especially in terms of leading like a thriving, successful retreat, what's a good place to start if you're new to this?
Yeah, well, I would say that if making a profit is important to you, um, usually international retreats are where that's at. And the reason for that is because the price per head, like per night, is much lower usually than it would be for like a domestic retreat. Like here, at least in Colorado in the mountains, for like one night for one student, it might be like $300, which includes like their food and their lodging and excursion and whatever else. But if you go somewhere internationally, like Mexico or Costa Rica or anywhere in Central America, it's going to be much lower than that. So I always just try to like figure out what a teacher's goal is with their retreat. Many teachers I've talked to who lead domestic retreats, which is totally not wrong, and it's accessible to a completely different crowd. They usually end up breaking even or losing out on money. So I just sort of try to figure out where do you want to go? Do you want to be nearby or do you want to go somewhere else? And the next thing that's really important to figure out is the theme of your retreat, or like the reason for having people come. Sort of what is your what's going to be the description that's going to wrangle people in and get them really interested in what you're doing. Like, what's the purpose of the retreat? And I've talked to a lot of teachers who they're like, hey, I'm going down to Mexico for a week, like come do yoga. And maybe they don't have very many people interested, unless maybe you're like Janet Stone or Brian Cast or something. Usually you need a little bit more to convince people to come travel with you and spend money on you. So having a reason, a theme for the retreat, a good description, a good hook to get people interested, I think is kind of like the first two steps. Where do you want to go and what do you want the retreat to be about? And then from there, you can start to move forward and really get things together.
If you have a yoga studio, listen up. Running a yoga studio has never been more complicated. With all the new ways to interact with your current and potential clients, it's really easy to get overwhelmed. The last thing that you need is complicated studio software, slowing you down and zapping your free time. I know so many studio owners who feel frustrated because they're talking to customer support more than they're talking to their students. That's why I'm super, super excited about this latest update from Offering Tree. Offering Tree has added a lot of new features recently to meet the needs of studios. So check out what they have to offer or book a demo call at offeringtree.com/pricing. The right software can help you make more money and spend more time doing what you want to do with your business. And that's why I believe in Offering Tree and the difference their tools can make for yoga studio owners. Who doesn't want to spend more time with students and less time struggling to piece together software? Also, have I mentioned that you can do everything you need to do all in one place with just one payment? So on top of spending less time struggling, you can also spend a little bit less money. I promise I won't be offended if you pause the show for the next minute to head on over to offeringtree.com/pricing to book a demo call. And of course, we have a special discount for you for listening to the show, and that's offeringtree.com/MBO. So make sure you check that out. All right, now back to the show. Yeah, those are really good tips because I think that, I mean, there's a lot of retreats out there for people to choose from. And sometimes it's a matter of them searching for like a specific destination or specific dates or something that they're interested in. But yeah, often it will be, some specific theme or that type of thing. What are the themes that you usually do your retreats around?
Well, I've done a lot of training and reading on and about the chakras. So I like to do retreats about a journey through the chakras. My most consistent retreat in Costa Rica in November is called A Journey to the Heart. And we really I do my retreats with my husband. He comes and does my music for me, just like we do on our live streams. So our goal is to kind of have people dive into these deeper ideas on like forgiveness and acceptance and gratitude. But we really want it to be accessible in like a non-woo-woo way. We want people to be able to go into creating this deeper relationship with themselves with a way that's really grounded and accessible to anyone and everyone. So we really try to have our retreats be open to anyone and everyone. And that's kind of a big part of our retreats. We want it to be a non-judgmental space. Show up as you are, be exactly as you are. And we also want to give people a lot of freedom during their retreat to either come to class, maybe they come to all the classes, or maybe they spend most of the time to themselves and exploring. I think other great retreat themes are if people have like a niche offering that they want to do, like maybe it's a Kundalini yoga, intro to Kundalini yoga, which I have someone doing for one of their retreats, or maybe it's like an aerial retreat. Um, or I have another client I'm starting to work with who's doing like sound bath stuff. So if you have like a particular niche with something, that's also really helpful for kind of creating an interesting retreat where people will be like, oh, I haven't heard of that before, or I would love to immerse myself in that for a week. I even have some actual like therapists who are reaching out to me, who are kind of incorporating like therapy and yoga for a week. So it's really interesting. Everyone has sort of these different offerings, and I think that's such a great hook.
Yeah, I love that. I think that having something that you like do uniquely or that you specialize in can be really amazing. Or like you were talking about the chakras, being able to have sort of this like overarching theme of like the entire time that you're there. And then I'm curious, like for somebody who is like, okay, I want to do this, let's just use Costa Rica as an example. Like I'm really drawn to Costa Rica. I go there every year anyways. I would love to be bringing people here. I specialize in like yoga nidra, for example. I'd love to do, you know, a retreat themed around restoration and have yoga nidra in it. Do you suggest doing like as market research beforehand? Like, are my students interested in this? Or is it a matter of like putting it together, packaging it, and then just selling it to them? Like, how do you kind of suggest people go about that?
Yeah, I feel like knowing who your clientele is really important. Um, for me personally, I knew that I wanted to get out of the country and I wanted to explore different places. So um, that was always the way I was going to go. And I haven't had I haven't had a problem with getting people to fill my retreat. I kind of threw caution to the wind with the first couple and I just set them up, and luckily people came. But like I said, I also had a strong student base. I do, when I talk to people, I ask them, hey, how long have you been teaching? Do you have a strong student base? And there's a lot of people I talk to who are in teacher training or just finished, and I just got to be honest with them and let them know, like, if you don't have people that know you and trust you, it might not be time yet to lead a retreat. um, and I try to get an idea of where someone would want to lead a retreat, where it would be most likely that their students would come. Like, does it matter how close to the airport you are? Are you okay if there's like a day's travel from the airport? Does it matter if you're by the ocean, or do you want to be in the jungle? Do you want to do something that's more luxury, that's going to be more high priced? Or do you have like a younger clientele that wants something maybe more rustic? Or do you want like a surfer vibe? So I really try to get an idea of who the teacher is, who their clientele is, where they think that they would want to go. So there's a lot of questions that I ask them before I start researching different venues for them. But I think it's just really important to have a strong group of students who come to you really regularly and know you and trust you. And, while I do marketing with my newsletters and through social media, um, ultimately the people who are coming on your retreat know you, and they want to travel with you. They want to have this experience with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that that's a really good piece of advice because I think I really love like how this can be a really great source of income for yoga teachers. But I think I've also heard from yoga teachers who are like, oh yeah, I was like so stoked to, travel and take people to this place that I love. And then, I put this down payment down and it was non-refundable. And then people didn't sign up and like I actually lost money. And I think that what you're talking about is like one of the biggest reasons this can happen is like if you don't have students that are loyal to you and coming to your classes and that you have relationships with, then it's probably, the first step would be building up that community so that you have those people who are ready to invest a little bit more in something that you're offering abroad.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just something that comes with time and practice and putting in the effort to creating a relationship with students. It takes a long time. And I mean, I've even asked some newer teachers, like, would you go on a retreat with someone who you didn't know? Or someone who no one was in, your friends didn't know or your family didn't know, like, would you go? And their answer is always no. So it's, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble or break their heart, but it's just the truth of the matter. You have to have people who know you and who would want to support you in that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so, in terms of choosing a destination, have you always, chosen destinations that you'd been to previously? Do you usually like scout out your locations before you book something? How do you go about doing that?
I look for locations that either I've been to or I know people who have been to. If I'm looking at a retreat venue for someone who I've never been to, I'll definitely look at all the reviews. I reach out to um, people who've left reviews. I will look at their upcoming retreats, and I'll reach out to the teachers and say, have you been here before? Like, what do I need to know about this place? Is there any reason why you wouldn't come back here? So I definitely try to do as much research and get to know the people who actually go there for retreats and ask me questions. So I would love to get to a place where I can actually afford to go to every venue and scout it out beforehand. But I do offer like chaperone services. So if someone is like brand new, it's a first retreat, and they feel really overwhelmed with just the whole idea of it all, showing up and getting there and getting yourself acquainted, being present with the group for the week. I do offer for some people, if they want, I can like go ahead of time and meet you there and sort of like chaperone you and your group throughout the week, so you feel like less overwhelmed and feel completely supported. So it's really up to people if they feel like they need that extra support or not. But I definitely will look for certain places that I know people have gone to. And if I don't, I will try to do as much research with past teachers who've been there and kind of get their take on the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I feel like there's like nothing kind of, I don't know, more uncomfortable than like the idea of showing up with people who have put their trust in you. And then, you know, the place doesn't look anything like the photos and that type of thing. Because I feel like, that happens with Airbnbs. It can happen with villas. It can happen with retreat
Oh
centers.
yeah.
So I feel like just
I would
being
never I
cautious.
would never suggest going to an Airbnb, because I have heard horror stories of hosts canceling last minute. I mean, that's happened with me just with vacation. So I would never suggest go to an Airbnb. I probably wouldn't go to like a hotel. I'm usually looking for something really specific, like an actual retreat center that's set up for yoga retreats, that has props, that has like a restaurant attached, that has shuttle service, that has access to excursions, um, that has like an actual space, that has house cleaning. Like, I look for something really specific where I feel like people are going to be the most comfortable, and they don't have to do anything. They can just show up and have their retreat and know that everything's taken care of.
Yeah. And I think too, for you as the retreat leader, I think it's like kind of operating within like your zone of expertise or your zone of genius, right? Like your expertise is in teaching yoga and like holding space for the students and stuff. You don't want to have to be like the housekeeper and,
The
the taxi
cook.
driver, the cook, all those types of things. Like that's just super stressful.
Yeah. I've been on a retreat where I was the teacher, and then there were some other facilitators, but we were all in charge of cooking all the meals, and it was the most stressful week of my life. I mean, this is when I was newer to retreats, but that was at the point where I was like, I'm never going to be like part of part of keeping everything together. I need to be there just to simply teach. And that was a big wake up call for me. And I do know teachers who want to go and they want to be in charge of cooking the food, and they'll be in charge of setting up the shuttles and everything like that. And it's too much. It's too much for one person, and it's not necessary.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk about pricing a little bit. So obviously you need to price, appropriately so that you're able to actually make a profit. Once you are talking to a retreat center and they kind of give you, how much it's going to cost for, say, a week for 10 people, how do you go about actually setting the price that you're charging the students?
So how it usually goes is they'll give you like a base price, and they'll say, okay, for a week, for one person, including their food and their lodging, and their airport shuttle. Sometimes they'll include that. For one person, it's $1,000. So I'll just say that, and then after that, you can add on what you would like on top of that. So I usually have people keep in mind you're probably going to do an early bird special. Um, you got to think about your own travel costs. Out of your profits, you usually pay for an excursion, like you include an excursion with the price of the week. I also want to think about taxes and also gift bags. These are all things that are going to come like out of your profits. So I try to ask teachers, what do you want to make after all these expenses are taken out? So I would say like usually, if you're looking to feel like comfortable with how much you've made, at least add on $1,000 to the base price. It obviously depends on who you are, who your clients are, what the base price is. I usually have my clients add on between $1,000 and $1,500. So that is what they put on top of the price. Let's say they add on $1,500. It's $2,500 for your client to come to Costa Rica for a week with everything included. And for a lot of people, that sounds like a good deal, like having their lodging taken care of, all their meals, twice daily yoga. It obviously depends, like I said, who you are, where you're from. But for my clients, that sounds like a really good deal to them. Some people might add on less, some people might add on more. So that's how pricing works. And also the deposit that you put down at the beginning, I think it's good for people to know that if your retreat does happen, that goes towards the final price at the end. So it's like you get it back. So even though it might seem like, I don't want to give someone $1,000, it's a lot of money to reserve a week, like it does go on to that final price that you pay at the end. So it's like getting it back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great thing to consider. And I like that you kind of went through, those other expenses as well, because I think it's easy to kind of, obviously we want things to be affordable for our students, but I think it's also making sure like you get paid. And I've done, other conversations and interviews with retreat leaders. And I feel like that's the biggest thing that I hear so often is like, make sure that you're paying yourself because it's a lot of work. Like you're on the retreat, but you're also leading the retreat, right? So your experience is going to be
Yeah.
quite different than somebody who is just there to chill out for a week.
Yeah. I mean, you're on for an entire week. You're usually teaching 2 classes a day. You also have to be considerate about how you're showing up throughout the whole week. That was something that took me a couple times to figure out, is that it's not my vacation. Like these are my students. I have to maintain the integrity of the energy for the week. And I yeah, it takes a lot of energy out of you to show up. I mean, it takes a lot of energy to show up for an hour-long class, let alone being on for a week. So I try to remind teachers that you deserve to be paid well for this.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree with that. And I'd love to hear a little bit about just like what you've learned over the years in terms of like managing your energy and, ways that you can kind of make sure that you're giving yourself the chance to rest and recharge so that at the end of the retreat, you're not like, returning home to your regular teaching schedule, just, even more burnt out than maybe you were when you left.
Yeah, well, I do suggest if people are able to show up a couple of days early so you can get a lay of the land, get to know the people who work there, and also just ground yourself. I've often shown up like on the day of, oftentimes flying in with the group, and I'm just sort of frazzled. I don't know what's going on with customs. I don't know where the place is. I don't know where anything is once I arrive. So I would usually suggest people come a couple days early, which all my students have made plans to do, or excuse me, all my teachers have made plans to do. And also, I suggest if you can, like stay a couple days later so you can sort of um, digest the week and process everything that happened and feel like you're not in a rush to come home. Um, and I also try to let teachers know that, take your downtime while you are teaching twice a day. Like you have a lot of time to take naps and to just sort of like, for me, I'm an introvert, which is I think surprising to a lot of people, but I definitely need, like, after I teach, I go into the room and I just sort of like, do whatever I need to do to just feel like I have some downtime, whether it's, just hanging out, watching TV shows or, taking naps. I'm a big fan of naps. So I definitely try to make sure that I have that space away from the group so I can just sort of fill my own cup and then be ready to be sociable and on and be a leader when I go back out there. So yeah, I think showing up a little early, staying a little late, and also making sure that you're taking time to be alone with yourself is really crucial and necessary for just being with everyone for an entire week.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, even if you're more of like an extroverted type, I think still giving yourself that time is so important. And I love the idea of like showing up before your students, giving yourself like a couple days to just land and, you know, kind of arrive there. Because I feel like travel can be so like disorienting, right? It's like you wake up in one place, you go to bed in another place, in another country, like thousands of miles from where you live. And it's like, can just be very, yeah, very disorienting. It's nice to just ground yourself so that when other people arrive, it's like your energy kind of helps them ground and get into it, and then give yourself like a couple days of vacation to decompress at the end. I think that that's, yeah, a really good piece of advice.
For sure. I definitely would say I'm not always my best self when I'm traveling. So if I don't have to have my students with me to watch me go through that, whatever that is, I feel like them showing up and I'm just like, hey, like, how's it going? Let me show you where things are. Like, this is so and so. Like, it's much more relaxed that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely hear that for sure. And so I know that you have your business, like you mentioned, where you're helping people. Maybe we can talk a little bit about like what you do with that, and if people are looking to get into retreats and want a little bit more assistance, kind of, what that entails.
Yeah, so I offer full service retreat planning and I also offer one-on-one coaching. Um, and for my full service retreat planning, I will start off by just having a call with someone, asking them like about themselves, who they are, what's their teaching experience, like what's their relationship with their students, where would they want to go, what's important to them with a venue, and then I'd spend some time researching venues, sending the teacher some places, seeing what do you think about this? Like, what do you think about this pricing? I would get them all the information they need to make the decision. Once they've picked out a venue, then we would reserve the week. And I start to get going on building them a website where people can get information, they can sign up, they can pay, they sign terms and conditions, all that good stuff. I also send teachers like marketing material, postcards they can hand out after class, um, and give them digital marketing material. And I'm really the liaison with the retreat center and also the students throughout the entire planning process. So the teacher doesn't have to get bogged down with all the communication that goes on. I help with setting up shuttles, excursion transportation, um, and getting all the information to the retreat center, and also helping people have a form of communication during the week. I like to have a WhatsApp group for everyone, so everyone can kind of feel in the loop. And if they don't know where everyone is, they can check their phone. Where is everyone? So really just take care of everything from beginning to end, so teachers feel like they can just show up and be present with their group. With the coaching, I really just give step-by-step guidance to a teacher who wants to learn how to do it on their own, but just doesn't know how to. Sometimes I do have coaching clients who, once we get into it, they're like, I just want you to do this because it's a lot of work, especially up front, just to get things going. But my goal is just like I've done this so many times and I feel so good about it. And I understand all the details that goes into making this feel seamless for students, to make everyone feel supported. And I just want teachers to feel like they can just let this be a relaxed experience and make a profit and have full creative expression to teach what they want to teach during the week.
Yeah, I love that. And so maybe we can just talk about like a couple benefits of using like a service like the one that you offer. Like if somebody's kind of in their mind, they're like, yeah, that sounds amazing, but I'm teaching full time, I'm hustling, I'm not making huge profits right now because, I'm just teaching studio classes, maybe just even getting back into it since pandemic days. What is kind of like the biggest reason or a couple of big reasons like why somebody could benefit from actually getting help with this?
I think knowing the right questions to ask a retreat center is really important, um, because you can get yourself into a situation where you don't understand what's the minimum that you need, what are the payment deadlines, because it's different for everyone, um, and what is the deposit amount that I need for this, and are there payment plans available? Um, I find that, like I said, the first part of getting things going, finding the place, coming up with the retreat description, coming up with a website, coming up with marketing materials, like that first part is the hardest, and it's where a lot of people get stuck and blocked, and usually just get overwhelmed and throw their hands up and say, "Okay, I don't want to deal with this." And I want to be like, "But wait, like you're missing out on this opportunity to to get out of your routine and go do something that's really, I feel like, almost an advanced move as a teacher to decide to host a retreat and host people and be their leader for a week. Um, Also, for me, like I said, I was teaching 15, 20 classes a week. It was a way to like break the monotony, like of going through that routine of driving all around town almost all day every day and teaching. It was a great way to just have something else to look forward to. It really was a game changer for me. I mean, I'll never go back to teaching 20 classes a week, and I'll always have one or two retreats to look forward to. And uh, it's because of that I've been able to get out of that situation that I was in. And I'm so passionate about showing other teachers that this is possible for them. And it doesn't have to be, studio classes forever. Like there is another way to up level your teaching experience, to expand your career, to expand your financial situation. It's just been everything. And I'm very passionate about helping other people experience that.
Yeah, no, I really love that. And so maybe you can tell us about your retreats coming up. I know you mentioned at the beginning of, our time together that you've got one coming up in the fall. Anything you've got going on, let's hear it.
Yeah, right now I have our fall one in Costa Rica, and then in March we have it's going to be like a yoga and a fitness retreat. So I'll be incorporating like um, elements of bar and HIIT and strength training and yoga. It's going to be called Get Moving, and it's all about sort of getting unstuck and igniting your inner fire to um, just find a more evolved version of yourself. I think it's really cool that my husband and I are able to work together and incorporate music with our classes. But right now I'm rotating through 2 retreats a year. Um, that's sort of where I'm comfortable, not feeling like I'm overdoing it. Sometimes I talk to people who are like, I want to lead like 4 or 5, 6 retreats a year. And it's just like adding on too many retreats can be detrimental. That can be where you might end up losing money. I think starting with, one, seeing how that goes. If you start to fill it up, then start to plan a second retreat. And I'm really good with just rotating through 2 retreats a year at 2 different seasons. So that's what I have going on. Again, I have live streaming going on 4 times a week on Twitch, and just helping teachers create their retreats and showing them what's possible.
Very cool. And final question for you is, what are some of the biggest, I guess, like business lessons that you've learned through your career? Like if you could share some wisdom of what you've learned through your whole yoga career with listeners, what would that be?
Well, I was actually just talking to my husband about this last night. I said I feel like my business has helped me to really sit with this idea of you can't please everyone. I think that, and I know everyone goes through this, definitely through my 20s and my early 30s. I was really concerned with making sure that everyone was completely happy with me all the time. And through starting my own business, I've realized that, the people who resonate with me are going to, we'll come into each other's orbit. But that's been the biggest thing for me, is just doing what I can do, connecting with the people who resonate with me, and letting go of the rest. I know that being a teacher is a big part of it, is how people see you, and your Instagram following, and how you look on the outside. And it's just been, I've really just been kind of taking a step back from social media, and putting more effort into my personal relationships when I see people in person. And man, I don't know, my relationship with teaching yoga has been so up and down over the years. I love it. And it's been a struggle. And I think just being true to myself and who I am, and honoring that has been what's kept me going and kept my relationship with my students going.
Yeah, I think that you can't see me, but I was just nodding along with that. Like, I just feel like sometimes in this digital world that we're in, which is beautiful. Like, I love that. I have an online business. All that stuff is great, but it's like we can kind of forget about the power of being in relationship with people. And I feel like this is kind of the magic of how our businesses get built and how we create communities and how we get these long-term students that are with us for years and years and come with us to places like Costa Rica or Mexico, et cetera, et cetera. So I really love that. I think that there's a time and a place for, social media, email lists, all that stuff is great tools to help us build our businesses. But I really think the heart of what we do as yoga teachers comes from building relationships with people and getting to know people.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've been taking a step back from my personal and teaching page. Like, I've just been going online to access my business pages, and having that space has allowed me to be more present when I go and I teach and I show up with people, and they tell me how they're doing. It's not something that I saw online. It's something that we talk about in person. And I have actually been having more people reach out to me through text and emails since I've been taking a break from my social media, because I'm not on there to see what they're doing and they can't see what I'm doing. And so I don't know, my relationship with social media is evolving all the time, I think, as it is for all of us. But I just have to remember that for me, like, being in real life relationship that's what's important. And I try to remember that at the end of the day, like, that's what matters, is being present with what's right in front of you, what's real.
Amazing. I love that. I think on that note, it's a good place to wrap up. Erin, I love this conversation. Before we go, can you share where people can go to find you, where they can get in touch with you, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, it's just Panacea Retreats everywhere on Instagram, on Facebook. Erin at panacearetreats.co is my email, or just panacearetreats.co is my website. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I've really loved this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.